ThunderCats. ThunderCats. ThunderCats.
Welcome to ImaginaTVisions.com Nostalgia Trip. Justin here, and today, folks, we are going to travel back to the 1980s to talk about one of my favorite 80s cartoon shows. Let's talk ThunderCats. When I think about the ThunderCats, I just don't think about another 80s cartoon. I think about one of those shows that knew how to grab your attention right away. The opening theme, the animation, the sword, the roar, Mumm-Ra transforming, Lionel calling on the Sword of Omens. Everything about it felt big. It felt important. It felt like a cartoon that wanted to be more than just something kids watch before grabbing the toys. The original Thundercats came out in 1985. I wasn't even born yet. I will be born next year. And it was created by Tobin Ted Wolfe, and Rankin Bass produced the series, which is interesting because most people knew them for holiday specials like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty the Snowman. So seeing the studio attached to such a sci-fi fantasy action series about cat-like warriors fighting ancient evil already made Thundercats feel different. The show was also a product of its time. The 80s were packed, and I mean packed, with cartoons connected to the toy lines. And Thundercats was definitely part of that world, but what made it stand out to me is that it never felt like it was only made to sell toys. There was some real mythology behind it. There was a world, a code, a team, and a villain and a hero who actually had to grow into the person everyone needed him to become. With that being said, let's talk a little bit about the story and the characters. The story starts with the destruction of Thundera. The Thundercats are forced to leave their dying home planet only to be attacked by the mutants of Plundar. And the survivors end up on Third Earth, where they have to rebuild, protect the Sword of Omens, and fight against the evil Mumm-Ra. The setup still works because it gives the show stakes, it gives the show some weight. And these are heroes that are not just hanging around waiting for the villain of the week. They lost their world. They're trying to survive. They're trying to carry the spirit of Thundera with them. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about the show now as an adult. Thundercats is about legacy. What do you do when your home is gone? What values do you hold on to? How do you rebuild without losing yourself? The Thundercats are warriors, but they're also survivors. Their Earth becomes a new beginning for them, but it also becomes a test. And speaking of characters, let's go to that. Lionel, he's the heart of the show, and what makes him interesting is that he looks like he's grown, but inside he's still young, he's still learning, and that gives his character a strong hook. He has the power, the sword, and the title, but he doesn't automatically have the wisdom. He has to earn that. He has to learn patience. Lord, does Lionel need patience? Leadership, discipline, and responsibility. And what I loved about this particular character, especially me watching this as a kid and now as an adult, knowing about arcs and hero journey tropes, Lionel has a hero's journey arc that we've known and seen throughout our years of living here and consuming story and entertainment. And I've always liked that because it made him more than just the guy with the cool weapon. And speaking of the cool weapon, the Sword of Omens is one of the most iconic weapons in cartoon history. Sight beyond sight is such a great concept because it doesn't just mean about seeing enemies from afar away. To me, it represented learning to see the truth, and Lionel has that look. He has to look past the fear, the anger, the pride, and confusion. And the sword is powerful, but the person holding it has to become worthy of that power. And speaking of the rest of the Thundercats team, Pantro is the muscle and the mechanic, but he also brings maturity and confidence. Chitara is fast, graceful, and strong, and she never feels like she's just there to stand in the background. And let's be honest, Chitara, for a lot of the 80s babies, 90s babies, I guarantee you Chitara began one person's furry obsession. If someone's a furry, it's probably because of Chitara. Tiger is smart and thoughtful, given the group strategy and balance. And then we had, of course, Wily Kit and Wily Cat. I wasn't really much of a fan of those characters, but they brought that youthful mischief energy to the show. And then we, of course, we have Snarf, 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 who can be annoying sometimes, but he also represents he's a representation of Lionel's childhood and the part of him that he still needs guidance. And then finally we have Jaga. Oh man, Jaga. Even after Jaga is gone, his presence matters. He's that spiritual guide, the voice of wisdom, and the reminder that leadership is not only about strength. I think it's one of the reasons that the show has stayed with people for so long. It understood that heroes need mentors, that growing up means carrying lessons from the people who truthfully came before you. Hero is only as good as his villain in Journey. So let's talk about the villains. Of course, you cannot talk about Thundercats without talking about Mumm-Ra, the ever living. He's one of the greatest cartoon villains of that era. He's creepy, dramatic, over the top in the absolute best way. And his transformation into Mumm-Ra, the ever living, is still unforgettable. The chant, the ancient spirits, the mummy design, the giant evil form, it gave the show a horror edge without going too far for kids. He felt like a real threat, even when the show got silly. The mutants also gave the series that classic Saturday morning villain energy. They were loud, weird, and sometimes goofy, but they worked because they gave the Thundercats different enemies to bounce off of. Mumm-Ra was the ancient evil, while the mutants were more of the direct physical threat, and together they helped make Third Earth feel dangerous and unpredictable. From a production standpoint, the show had a look that helped separate it from a lot of other 80s cartoon shows. The animation, especially in the opening, had this sharp, energetic, almost anime like power to it. The intro made the characters feel legendary before the episode even started. You could watch that opening and understand the appeal immediately. It sold the world, the action, and the attitude in under 2 minutes. And let's not forget the amazing music. The music also deserves credit here. The theme song is still one of the best cartoon theme songs ever. Hell, you just heard my Sono rendition of it. It's not just catchy, it feels heroic. It makes you feel like you want to stand up and shout, Thunder, 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 Thunder Cats. And that matters. A great theme song can help keep a show alive in people's memories long after episodes stop airing. And the 80s were packed with amazing cartoon theme songs. You don't really get amazing cartoon themes today, even in anime. Like, I still watch anime from time to time, but some of those theme songs in modern day anime, it's not as catchy as a Smile Bomb from a Yu Yu Hakusho or Chahala Head Chala from Dragon Ball Z. Just to name something off the top of the head. And the music deserves all that credit because it really just amplified and set the tone for a lot of it. And what I also find interesting is that Thundercats also had moral lessons without making them feel too heavy. A lot of the episodes had some kind of message about honesty, courage, teamwork, pride, fear, or responsibility. And sometimes it was obvious, but that was part of the charm. This was a show made for kids, but it respected the idea that kids could understand right and wrong through adventure. And speaking of themes, the biggest theme for me watching it as an adult, rewatching it as an adult, is growth. Lionel had to grow. The team had to grow. The Thundercats had to grow in their new home. Even Third Earth feels like a place where the past and the future are always fighting each other. You have ancient evil on one side and new civilization trying to survive on the other. That gave the series a stronger foundation that people can sometimes give it credit for. And that's why Thundercats is still memorable today. Yes, nostalgia plays a part. Of course it does. People remember the toys, the intro, the sword, the logo, and the catchphrases. But nostalgia alone does not keep something alive for decades. Thundercats still work because the core idea is strong. A young hero must become a true leader. A lost people must rebuild for a new home. A team must stand together against evil. The franchise has brought back more than once, including a 2011 reboot and a newer comic book runs where they are now trying to connect Transformers and G.I. Joe to one and Thundercats all in one universe. I'm all for it. And that shows that people still care about this world. Fans still want to see Lionel, Chitara, Pantro, Tigra, Mumm-Ra, the ever living. I can't help myself. And the Sword of Omens. They still want that mix of fantasy, sci-fi, action, and mythology. For me, Thundercats is one of those shows that prove cartoons can become commercial and still have its soul. It was absolutely made in the toy driven 80s, but it had enough heart, style, and imagination to last beyond that era. It gave kids heroes to cheer for, villains to fear, and a world that felt bigger and simple, good versus evil. The roar still means something. It's not just a catchphrase, it's a call to stand up, fight back, and become better than you were yesterday. If there's one reminder I take from the Thundercats, it's that even in the toughest moments, we still have a choice in who we become. So whether you're online or whether you're in the real world, remember to choose kindness. You never know what someone is carrying, and a little compassion can go further than you think. Be better to each other. This is Justin from ImaginativeVisions.com saying, later days, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one.